I think you talked at a city council meeting, and it kind of blew up on the internet. I think everybody saw it, and I know I was cheering for it because I thought it was great to see somebody like putting it on the record. So why don't we start with that? What is your basic premise so everybody knows?
Yeah, so just a little backstory on that. That's what I've been doing as of late. Within the last 2 years, or within the last year, I've essentially spoke at two Brevard County Commission meetings, one about NASA's ISS and one about the Challenger explosion. And at both of these meetings, I really just wanted to go in and, like you said, get it put on the record officially and ask these people for help. Like, I can't get anyone else to listen to me. No congressman. NASA obviously will never answer the phone. So I was like, well, let's go to our local council meeting and ask these people. I've been talking to them about COVID and stuff in Orange County. Let's go over to Brevard and talk about NASA. Kennedy Space Center is in Brevard County, right? They also ask the federal government for help with things all the time. So it didn't seem totally out of the realm for me to go and do this. So that's what I did. I really wanted the federal government to sound the alarm about these issues. So I brought in, I showed the evidence of the ISS in the one, and in the most recent one, I brought the poster board of the astronauts, quote unquote, doppelgangers, and showed them to the board. And about halfway through, the chairman got so triggered by just the sheer thought of what I was bringing up that he throws me out, escorts me out with police, throws Austin Whitsitt, who was with me, out as well, another guy with us. Some other ladies were sticking up for us. They weren't even,
So,
had no
real
knowledge of
quick
the
before
topic.
we move forward,
Yeah,
what he got upset with is your belief, which is my belief, is that
right.
the Challenger astronauts are still alive, at least all
Yes.
of them, but possibly one. But
Yes.
they're still alive. That's your basic premise that you presented to this county, this city council, and they lost their skull.
Yes, and I apologize. Sometimes I forget people
No,
need like the basic details. I feel like everybody's brought up to speed. But yeah, the premise is that in 1986 that rocket exploded empty. And those people, for whatever reason, we can get into the possible motives and agenda, but for whatever reason was empty. And we, traumatized millions of Americans and school children that day. For what gain? And if that's true, like I said, it needs to be brought up and people should be held accountable. If it's just a coincidence, then let's just shut this down and we'll stop talking about it.
well, you bring up a lot of great points, and to me, you know, the space challenger hoax, we'll call it at this point, it symbolizes and embodies everything that the elites do to the masses, and
Right.
it's what Monica Perez calls a black mass trauma event. And that's what they're doing. They're traumatizing a lot of people. And the reason I kind of pumped the brakes on what I was talking about earlier when I brought up Kennedy is because Kennedy, again, that's a black mass trauma event as well. But
Yeah.
there's things that were presented to Kennedy that he vetoed, and we'll get into that. But this is what they do to us. This is why they do it to us. So let's start the beginning of when did you start to think that it is possible that what you've been told about the Challenger is not real? Let me do that. How old are you?
I'm 37.
So this at 86, how old were you?
So yeah, I was born in 87.
Okay, so you weren't even alive.
I didn't even
Okay.
get to experience what everybody's commenting under my video and describing their trauma.
I 100% experienced this. I was
Yeah.
in Mr. Aspinwall's class, and the event happened. They had us all watching it, which was a very weird thing. For some
Yep.
reason, they had to have us all watching this astronaut situation, and then bang, it explodes. And what was very interesting was that the kids in the class were just had a weird reaction to it. And some people were joking
Right.
about it because like they were trying to digest what was going on. And Mr. Athmore got very mad at us, explained to us that these astronauts are doing stuff that we were never. It was like a very weird. They laid into us this: we'll never ever be able to do this, and it was traumatizing. It was traumatizing to everybody, that big event. And, and it changed kind of the way the space program operated at that point. So, yeah, man, it was a big event. It was a very big, 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 big event. And it's interesting to me, the whole. And so when this story came across like a couple of years ago to me, it was like really resonated with me
Yeah,
because
and that's what I was getting at too, was like I didn't even I was looking into the Eric Dubé, the shape of the earth and like NASA's lies, the moon landing. I was already looking into that for briefly, but then quickly, when you're in the NASA rabbit hole, you come across this story. And I was just like, wait a minute, that's a little strange. Okay, one of them has a look-alike, two of them maybe, okay, you can find some, but the same names. So I quickly, due diligence, I went and looked it up myself. I find like five of them. I think no, it's six really, but I only stuck to three for reasons we can get into. But when you see that many, and then you could verify, and then two of them have now been confronted on camera, it's like the odds of that are crazy. And I talked about that in my speech. I tried to research myself, find other doppelgangers. I was reaching out to people who paint doppelgangers for a living. And there was never a story or case where they're like, yeah, not only do we have this crazy doppelganger group, but we actually had people with the same name doppelgangers. Never mentioned. It would be the biggest story. The only one I could find was from like 1904 or something about two guys, and they said, "Oh, we got to create fingerprinting now because these guys look alike and have
oh,
the same name."
really?
Yeah, that's how big of a deal it was. And that could be who knows, that could be a made up story too.
The
But
only time I hear about that is these baseball players. I don't know if you
yeah, the
saw it.
baseball players are the other
That's
one.
that's literally it. That's
Now, and
literally
that
it.
one's interesting because if you take off their hat and their glasses and shave their beard, they don't look like Dick Scobie and Dick Scobie and Judith Resnick and Judith Resnick. They just, now it is weird that they have the same name and play Major League Baseball and they do have that look. But again, let's take the baseball guys and let's take my guys from 1901. You can't have three on one space flight.
No, you're totally right. That's it.
That's so
Like the odds
crazy.
on like all but one
That's
of
like
them.
you, your mom, and your dad all winning the lottery in the same household in like the
Yeah.
same year or something. Like,
No, you're totally right. The odds on that. And not only that, but it's like suddenly two of them have twins that were never on the record for having twins.
yeah, and you know what? I actually want to talk about the twin thing because I don't know if they're messing with us or if they're covering their tracks really well, but I can't find the source of that information now. Like every mention that they were ever their twin is gone.
Oh
So
yeah, well, that's
either
the
we
dead
all got
internet.
tricked or they have scrubbed it because I tried to dig it up because I kind of wanted to talk about the twins. And man, I kept running into so many roadblocks. I've even said publicly, I think we could be wrong about the black eye McNair, because there's just a very different shaped head and gap in his teeth. But the Asian guy, the teacher thing is still strange, even though she doesn't look like strikingly just like her. But again, I set all them to the side and I say, Mr. Francis Richard Dick Scobie. I mean, that's a unique name. And then
Yeah.
Judith Resnick, another unique name. And that you just, to have doppelgangers. And then Judith, people have done Judith's voice comparison. She even sits the same way. She's got a gap between her fingers that are the same. Dick Scobie, if people don't know this, Dick Scobie, his doppelganger, let's assume they're a different person, created a company called Cows and Trees. And in his promo video, he has a cow blast off from a rocket into the sky, leaving a smoke trail. So you mean to tell me there's a guy that looks just like you with a rare name like Dick Scobie, the same weird line in his mouth and the crooked eye, and he happens to have a promo video with a rocket? If
Right.
that's not the guy doing like a little duper's delight moment, then I don't know what that is. And when we found out about that video and started sharing it, that all got taken down and that company is no longer in existence.
Well, what really is going on here is something that we're seeing a lot on the internet, which is some 1984 shit, which is
Yeah,
basically rewriting history and wiping out any narrative they don't like. But why
yeah,
why would they do this? This is the question. Why would they do this? Well, the reason I brought up JFK earlier is because when JFK was president, one of the things that helped seal his doom was the fact that he didn't want to false flag Americans into a war with Cuba.
right.
and it's the famous Operation Northwoods, right?
Right.
Which is they wanted to create this big publicize this big event, which was they were going to make up a fake music festival in Cuba. And they were going to do this thing where they were going to send these college kids over there. So they were going to do this big interview with these college kids, do a big press tour, talk, put them on every daytime show, interview them on everything, everywhere. Then they were going to have a big event where they were going to see them go, goodbye, we're getting on the plane, goodbye, bye, bye, bye. You see our college kids get, which were most likely going to be played by CIA or FBI agents. They would get
Right.
on the plane, go in the air, the plane would land, and then another plane would go up in the air and they full of explosives, and they would blow it up, and they would present it as Cuba shot down this plane full of kids,
Right.
college kids who just want to go play at a music festival. That's all they want to do. And which is step by step by step the exact thing that happened with the Challenger. Step
Yes.
by step by step, but it actually happened. And it's crazy to me when you learn about Operation Northwoods. I remember I learned about Operation Northwood, was blown away, and then I learned about the Space Challenger, and I'm like, oh my god! It's step for step the exact game plan that they wanted Kennedy to do to get us in
Yep.
the war with Cuba. What are your thoughts on that?
That's the perfect example. Honestly, I use that all the time because when people are, oh, I don't, how could they, or why would Operation Northwoods was done in the 60s or attempted in the 60s. So if you extrapolate that out to what they could have possibly done in the decades leading up, from the Gulf of Tonkin to 9/11 to any of these shootings to the Challenger, I mean, yes, it's totally plausible. And you just described it. And then so to get them into war is things like what we described, 9/11 or that Cuba situation. What would be the gain for not, and some people think, oh, well, what if it was an accident and they just never are on these rockets and it happened to blow up and they just needed a cover story? To me, that goes out the window with the whole teacher thing. Because, like you described, what did they do? They brought in the teacher. They had 11,000 finalists. One of my best friends says, oh, my teacher almost made it. Everybody's got a teacher that almost made it. So everyone's connected to this thing. And they rolled that TV out in every gymnasium and every classroom. So everyone felt so, that to me, that is my like, okay, this was done purposeful for your mass trauma type of a scenario. So then you have to ask yourself why. Was it to get the boomers unwavering and impenetrable barrier around NASA? So if you ever question the moon landing or the ISS or anything NASA did, they would say, oh, how dare you, those heroes, those 7 astronauts died for us. That could be part of it. Some people described in their comments under my post about being a kid and being scared to ever want to be an astronaut. So then it scares the general public from doing it. So only their selected crew of CIA agents get to be
Freemasons.
little astronauts. And we've always heard, there's only a handful, hundreds of astronauts, not thousands. It would be very easy to just handpick these people, and whether they're MK Ultra cloned or just really good, useful idiots like Don Pettit, I don't know, but something's definitely going on there. And I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's some type of bizarre mass trauma exercise, and we can really only speculate why they do that creepy stuff, man.
Yeah, I mean, like it's a very weird thing with these mass trauma events where it's like so, something goes really bad and then they get more power and money. It's the
Yeah,
weirdest thing I've ever seen. It almost goes with oil, right? If you study
yeah.
oil, they'll be like, "Oh, a refinery blew up in blah 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 area. Gas is going to go up $1." Where you're like, that
Right,
makes
right.
no sense to me. Why are we taking it? Well, you guys should be. It's like when you go to a restaurant and you order food and the food gets fucked up, they bring you back another dish and then they charge you more money for it. That makes no sense to me. You
Doesn't
effed
happen,
up. It's
right.
on your end. Why am I taking the L on this? And this is just what they do. 9/11 is a really great example. I really do believe 9/11 is a morphing of this Operation Northwoods. It's a little
Mhm.
different. There's not as much publicity in terms of before the event. There was
Right.
talk of Osama bin Laden. There's talk of possible, attacks and what was going to happen. But the odds
More so
on
a surprise.
yeah, the odds on 9/11 happening, if you actually broke it down, are absolutely astronomical. It would never happen. It's as close to what you said earlier, three people winning the lottery in one household. It doesn't make any sense at all. The most fortified airspace in the world somehow gets penetrated by two dudes who can't even, a bunch of guys who can't even fly regular planes. They do the most Top Gun bullshit to
Yeah.
get these planes and just somehow,
Corkscrew,
yeah, it just no,
the Pentagon, all of it. Yeah, it's
yeah.
silly.
I mean, we're a lot more savvy now. It's like, and if you get into a lot of it, it's just like it's very hard for them to pull a lot of this stuff that they're pulling right now. But it really is about emotionally manipulating you into allowing them to do what they want to do because they really, at the end of the day, are all sorcerers and they're just running they're running manifestation mysticism on us because they just have these weird rules. I don't know what
Yep.
it is, and it's a blessing that they have this rule because it really makes it hard for them to do what they want to do, even though they tend to get what they want all the time. But this weird rule, you know, it's just like kind of like what's the old vampire, the Lost Boys? That might be way before your time, but the Lost Boys, the head vampire has to be invited into the house before he
Yeah.
can walk in. And it's just this kind of rule they have where they have to get us to co-sign on what they're doing. And it's like, because we would be bombing Iran right now if it was up to them, but
Right.
they just keep trying to find these ways to get us to buy. Oh,
Right.
you got Trump now going, oh man, they're hacking my campaign. It's like Iran, they try to shoot at me. Like nobody's buying it, dog. Nobody, like you guys used up that with
And you bring up a good point there with just Trump and the and 9/11 because the trauma. Think about the trauma from if you bring up 9/11, oh, how dare you? Those people died. You bring up the Challenger, oh, how dare you? The shootings. Oh, how about Trump's ear? You bring up the question that and people, oh, how dare you? It's
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
if you can traumatize people, they will basically believe whatever the official narrative is and attack anyone else because they feel like there's something tugging at them emotionally. I mean, that's why you can't question the shootings with kids. If you do, everyone's, oh my gosh, how dare you? It's like people died. It's like, well, I'm just going to say, and I've said it a million times, if something happens to anyone in my family, I would like to know who really did it. If the most of
Yes.
the truthers have good intent, most of them, I'm not going to say all, but most have good intentions and are trying to educate people about what really happened to these people in our country with these events. And we get attacked, but we have to remember that they have been manipulated to react that way.
How they do it. And that to me was a great question too. How did they allow this? How did this thing happen? I mean, literally on the day, step by step, how does it happen? Well, one day on Twitter, I don't remember where it is, somebody sends me a link to the rubber room. Have you ever heard of the rubber room?
Is this the little chute slide they go down? Yeah,
Yes, it's the
yeah,
chute slide that when if something goes bad, the
yeah.
astronauts or people working on it hit this chute slide, go all the way down into this giant concrete room
Bunker. Yeah,
bunker,
yeah.
right? Do you know about it? Can you tell us a little bit about
Yeah,
it?
yeah. So you're talking about a segment. It was either History Channel, BBC, one of them. But there's a guy, and he goes up there and shows it to you. And they think it's super cool. He's like, at the last minute, the astronauts can, if anything goes wrong, at the very last second before they get in that craft, they can jump down this slide. And he goes down. It's like a airplane, like inflatable slide or something, and goes into a safe room. And they've got these big chairs, and they can just like strap in. It's just looks like total for show, but that just goes to show you right there. That's how easy it would be for them to. I mean, hell, you watching the video of them waving to you could have been from 2 days ago, getting off the little NASA bus. But let's say it was live. They wave at you, they get on the thing, they go up there, and then they go down the little slide and they're safe. They launch the rocket up and it blows up. So I don't think, how at the moment is too hard to explain. The how gets more difficult when you talk about covering up their identities, implanting other stories of the other person, changing their names. I've even got some inside info on one of the astronauts that, like, since the video has gone out, let's just say some people have reached out to me with more information. and it's not leading me to believe that we were wrong. I'll just put it that way.
How they do it. And that to me was a great question too. How did they allow this? How did this thing happen? I mean, literally on the day, step by step, how does it happen? Well, one day on Twitter, I don't remember where it is, somebody sends me a link to the rubber room. Have you ever heard of the rubber room?
Is this the little chute slide they go down?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah.
chute slide that when if something goes bad, the
Yep.
astronauts or people working on it hit this chute slide, go all the way down into this giant concrete room
Bunker. Yeah.
bunker,
Yeah.
right? Do you know about it? Can you tell us a little bit about
Yeah,
it?
yeah. So you're talking about a segment. It was either History Channel, BBC, one of them. But there's a guy, and he goes up there and shows it to you. And he's, they think it's super cool. He's like, at the last minute, the astronauts can, if anything goes wrong at the very last second before they get in that craft, they can jump down this slide. And he goes down. It's like a airplane, like inflatable slide or something, and goes into a safe room. And they've got these big chairs, and they can just like strap in. It's just looks like total for show, but that just goes to show you right there. That's how easy it would be for them to. I mean, hell, you watching the video of them waving to you could have been from 2 days ago, getting off the little NASA bus. But let's say it was live. They wave at you, they get on the thing, they go up there, and then they go down the little slide and they're safe. They launch the rocket up and it blows up. So I don't think, how at the moment is too hard to explain. The how gets more difficult when you talk about covering up their identities, implanting other stories of the other person, changing their names. I've even got some inside info on one of the astronauts that, like, since the video has gone out, let's just say some people have reached out to me with more information. And it's not leading me to believe that we were wrong. I'll just put it that way, but I don't want to give
Oh,
too much up.
so you got some information that we might not be 100% correct?
No, no, no. I'm saying I have information. It's not showing that we were wrong in any way. It's
Oh,
basically
okay.
confirming more.
Okay. So what I find very interesting is, again, this is why I bring up the internet.
Mhm.
Like when this thing happens, the internet isn't even close to what it is, or even or anything. So
At
the
all, really. Yeah.
running this aren't thinking about, oh my God, how are we going to
Right.
cover this up with the internet? So like, if you just popped up into my world, because you either on Instagram or on Twitter, I see that you're talking to city council, but outside of that, I don't know Justin Harvey until today, this wonderful conversation. But Justin Harvey, let's say, goes in Florida and robs a bunch of banks, right? And
Right.
all of a sudden he moves up to upstate New York where I grew up, and now he's living life. I don't know what Justin Harvey did back there. There's no internet saying, watch out for Justin Harvey. He likes to rob
Right.
banks. There's nothing
Right.
like that. So you could move in some
Right.
whole new life over here, which is exactly what they do. It's like, oh, look at these people. They get on this
Right.
plane, they get on this thing, it blows up. That's the end of the story for us. We all move on. They can go on and start their own life because I guarantee you, like the 95, 96% of the people out there don't have their names seared
Right.
into their brain of who these astronauts were and their name. Most of the people couldn't tell you any of their names.
Exactly. And you make the best point. No one imagined the introduction of the internet and the ability for people to search their university profiles, their Facebook, their family pictures, match things up. So probably what happened is when they proposed this and they were like, look, like, I want to keep my same name. Like, I want to keep my same profession. Okay, fine. We'll let you work at a university in the same field, keep the same name. No one can look you up. Like, it's not even coming across. It's not like, well, can people look me up? It's not even a question. So, like you said, you can move. It's 2024. You could move an astronaut right now to a small town in, I don't know, Nebraska, and people would be around them, and they're never going to go, I'm going to Google Daryl whatever today and look him up and see if he was formerly a astronaut. Like, it's just not even going to happen in now's day and age. So if you go back, it's just probably feasible for them to let them at this university for a couple years before the Challenger explosion. If anyone does look you up, it's going to show that you were already working here. We'll say you published a couple papers, boom, you're covered. The other two guys can claim they're their brothers. These two, maybe they had a plan. The one guy that we can't find, maybe he really did the secret move to Argentina. I don't know what he did, or some people think he could have actually died of natural causes a couple years later. they just sweep it under the rug and we never find him. But yeah,
Or
man,
he
the
wanted to come
possibilities
out
are
and be
endless
like,
without
this
the
is a
internet.
giant hoax. It could be that he
Or
came
that
out, was like, I can't do this anymore. We're lying to everybody. They're like, okay, wrap it up, buddy. We don't need you around here anymore. Blown.
they gave him the Gus Grissom treatment.
Well, if you get into the one professor, I mean, like, again, you're talking about odds on looking exactly like with the exact same name. Okay. And we saw those baseball players. But what
And
you're
the
talking
same
about
age.
is that, and the same age, but we're talking mannerisms on how she
Yeah.
talks. She talks with her hands.
Yep.
And
Accent.
go on. Sorry.
She's even got the same like northeastern accent. She sounds like she's freaking from Boston, like both ladies. Like I get it. Like, okay, you've got another Judith Resnick. Oh, she's only 18 years old. She lives in Wisconsin. You mean to tell me she lives in the same part of the country with the same accent and the same general, like, they almost all have the same professions too. Like, even the ones that I don't think are as strong of evidence, that person is in the same profession. Like, the
Yeah,
teacher's
yeah,
still a
yeah,
teacher.
yeah, yeah,
What?
yeah. In Pittsburgh, I hadn't been there for a while. I do my joke, and we're doing a Q&A with me and Eddie Bravo, and somebody brings up the Challenger exploding. So I tell them why I don't think it's real. I tell them all these guys are alive, and I get off stage, and a woman comes up to me and she goes, "I need you to know that my cousin or my aunt, I forget what she says, was the professor Judy, what's her name, with the hands and all that stuff, and she's dead." I go, listen, I'm not here to be and get in a fight with you or argue with you, but what you're telling me is that this woman with the exact same name, the same lip situation, uh,
Right.
with the exact same name, same lip, same hand gestures, everything, same name, is teaching over there at either Syracuse or Harvard or I forget the
Yale.
school,
Yeah.
Yale. I'm sorry, she's alive. And you can get mad at me if you want. I don't care, but she's still alive. And I don't want to fight with you, but that's my whole opinion. And she's just like, she's dead. And she walked off. I'm like, I wonder if they're all told, listen, you got to kind of run
Yeah,
with
you
this.
got to wonder what part of the family it breaks down because you got to assume that the immediate family is in on it. I mean, were these people just like CIA plants their whole life? Like, I don't know, how were they raised into this? And then, but their third and fourth cousins can't be in on it, right? So there's got to be a break somewhere where people actually do think this person died. I've got I think someone kind of reached out to me and was asking questions about it that was related to one of them, and they were like, this is interesting. They weren't like that lady. It wasn't like, oh, that person's dead. They were like, I'm actually like curious to see what you have to say about this. I saw the video on TikTok. So there's more questions than there are answered, but I think that person, emotion takes over. Again, I'm not here to argue with any family members. If we're wrong, we can be wrong, but we need a statistician or a DNA test or something because something is not right. And that's exactly why I had to bring it to the city council. And that's exactly why they kicked me out. Is it was uncomfortable, emotion, and that's why I'm filing the lawsuit because I can't.
Oh, shit. Tell me about that. I want to hear the
Oh yeah,
lawsuit.
yeah. So we didn't even talk about that yet. So after the guy kicks me out of the room, I get put in contact with a lawyer who specializes in these county commission cases, and the fact that he called me crazy on my way out, said go see a mental institution, shows that he kicked me out based on the opinion that he thinks I'm crazy. So you can't do that as a public official. And I don't want
Whoa.
people to be scared to go in there. So I want to prove a point that we can talk in there freely about things that are relevant because it is relevant to them. It happened in Brevard County. I wanted the county to contact the federal government to investigate. They had just asked the federal government to write a letter to the Department of Transportation that day. So it wasn't out of the purview. So we're basically suing on First and 14th Amendment grounds. And the lawyer's been nice enough to cover a lot of the costs. I still started a little fundraiser. So thank you to anybody who donated to that, by the way.
Is
I
it
got like
still going, the fundraiser?
$2,500.
Can they donate to it?
Yeah, we're pretty much I put like a tiny goal of 2,500, but I'm probably going to have to up it if they don't throw it out or settle because if we have to pursue, it'll cost more. But it's already up to like $2,400. So if anybody wants to donate, feel free. But I'm just grateful that people threw me money and the guy is doing it for free. It's like I just have been reiterating that I never had a plan to like sue the government or go after the council. But if you're going to kick me out of a public comment period based on the grounds that you disagree with my opinion, yeah, we got a problem, and I'm gonna file a lawsuit. So
And it's just super interesting to me that person is in that position. And it's just like, the process in which they completely infiltrate every aspect of every part, every level of our government. It's like, to me, it's just, it's everything is data, and
mhm.
know exactly like who they can control, who they can't control, and they get that guy in, and he has just a giant reaction to it. Like for
Yep.
me, let's say I'm running it, I would just laugh. I'd be like, okay, dude, congrats,
The
good luck.
smartest thing for them to do is just shut up and say, next speaker, please. Every time they do that, our videos get hundreds or thousands of views. When they fire back at me and call me a liar or kick me out or do this, our videos go mega viral. And then we go back and say, you shouldn't have been able to do that. You were wrong. And it's like they give us ammo. Their best bet is to shut up. So when he opened his mouth, I was really upset when it happened because I'm thinking, I worked on this presentation. I wanted to put this on the record. But once we got outside, I realized, well, that's actually going to make the video more popular. And sure enough, it did. It was, super viral in no time.
So what is so you're taking them to court, and what are you suing them for, calling you crazy? Are you what is the goal of your lawsuit at the end of the day?
The goal is he called me crazy and threw me out of a public meeting as a public official. So I'm basically suing him for violating my First Amendment. It doesn't have to
Ah,
do with the challenger. It was just I happened to be talking about the challenger. And but what's interesting is since Mr. Jason Steele, who is an appointed man, not elected, the governor put him there, he can only be unappointed. That person who tried to shut me down has now made this story bigger than ever
yeah.
from kicking me out. And now the lawsuit, it's going to be even bigger. So it's really going to come to bite him in the butt when you didn't want anyone talking about this. Well, now it's a bigger conversation than it could have been.
It's the Streisand effect. The minute you
Exactly.
push back and you make it a bigger thing, and now it's going to even get bigger, and people are just going to see that you 100% are in the right to at least be able to voice your opinion on the situation. And I hope that you really do, like, this just goes mega huge. And I know, like, if you tag me, I'm going to retweet it. And even if you don't tag me, if I see it, I'll retweet it, because I think people need to understand, like, what NASA is. And, there's a whole discussion of what the word is. There's a Hebrew word called nashah, which is to
Yeah.
deceive. You have all of these Nazis who, like, if you go, Sam, who won World War II? A lot of people think it was the Allies and all that stuff. I go, well, if you're really asking me who won World War II, I would tell you the Nazis. Germany got destroyed. I think that was their job. And then everyone thinks we won a lottery and we could pick our favorite Nazis. I personally think they just walked over here. They crypt
Yeah.
walked over, dun 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 dun, and then they walk over here and they don't even change their names. They like if you're trying to deceive everybody, again, if you're again going back to this whole thing with, like, nobody changes their names. If you're trying to hide, right? Let's say Sam Tripoli's wanted for murder. Sam Tripoli doesn't move somewhere and my name is still Sam Tripoli. Now it's like Mac Johnson or something like that. So nobody knows who I really am.
I
If you,
know. And
you
that's what I think part of it is like the hidden in plain sight thing because you're less likely to believe it. You know how many people I've had comments say, "Oh, this is so stupid. They wouldn't have let them keep their same names. Therefore, I don't believe it." Like, well, just because that they screwed up or did something stupid or did something they shouldn't have done doesn't you can't ignore the evidence of the statistically impossible doppelgangers. So you can say, oh, well, how about this? We'll let you keep your same names. We'll just fake some of your history. They do that with CIA spies, I'm sure, all the time, which is interesting because I'm not sure if anyone's brought this up to you. You've talked to a lot of people about NASA, but there's people that have told me they think NASA is like a worldwide intelligence agency. And the space program is just the cover. And what better way? I like the idea, honestly, because what better way to control Antarctica, the North Pole, the entire world, using your satellites on balloons to literally monitor everything. But yet you're just claiming you're up here wringing out water on the space station all day long, doing
yeah.
stupid little space tricks with your plants. sending us fake pictures. I mean, that is the best cover for worldwide CIA. I guess someone told me at one point that they knew this is all, speculation and hearsay, but someone claims that they saw at one point top-down orders. And it was like all the intelligence agencies of the world, CIA, KGB, MI6, Mossad, but above that was the space community.
Really?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't doubt it because that is
Me
the
either.
one thing that they all agree on. Dude, this is so nuts. I literally saw an article, and maybe you posted, I don't know, but I saw it just
Yeah, I don't
literally
think so.
yesterday, saw an article which said all the countries want to join NASA. All of them. They
Huh.
all want to be a part of NASA, and it's something like a friend of mine from way back in the day said, like oligarchies help oligarchies, and it's just
Yeah.
like it's like the KGB and the CIA. Maybe they're button heads, but there's also times they both want to control their populations, so they might
Yeah.
work together in a way that is mutually beneficial. But if
I
you
mean, it sounds to me like they call each other and are like, listen, we know our leaders are at war. We know about XYZ, but we got that Antarctic treaty in place, and we're going to have to meet you down there for a meeting next. There is a very good chance that they are in agreement on the Antarctic treaty, whatever's going on at the North Pole, and the
wow,
super
dude.
secret things. But meanwhile, it's like, yeah, we'll let our presidents and our governments play the war games. But they don't know that the guy controlling Henry Kissinger and the guy controlling Putin's Henry Kissinger agree that nobody's going to Antarctica. What did Buzz Aldrin see that gave him a heart attack down there? I want to know. You
Yeah.
know, that guy clearly wants to speak out. So
No, I find, yeah, well, Buzz Aldrin's constantly telling us that we
I
didn't go there.
know,
I mean,
I know, it's so
and I'm like,
weird.
it's not me, ask Buzz. Like, you see clip after clip, he's like, because we never went there. And
I
everyone's
know.
like, what did he just say? And they just dismiss it as a crazy old guy, whether he's talking to Conan O'Brien or like a young little girl. He's like, because we didn't go. You think we went, we didn't go. And he just says it. And for some reason, I don't know whether it's revelation of the method. They need him to say that. So they kind of like, they could be like, we told you, like, we didn't go.
Yeah,
You were,
or it's just his conscience. Maybe his
it,
conscience is getting through, and he's like, man, Neil kept it quiet, Michael Collins kept it quiet. Maybe I can leak out some truth and just play the senile card. Think about what Neil Armstrong said. He never gave any public speeches, and during his one speech, he gives a speech to students, and instead of saying anything about the moon missions or anything motivational, he's like, I hope that the younger generation can remove some of truth's protective layers. Like,
what?
that sounds like an astronaut that's been silent for 60 years. It is like, please figure it out after I die.
You know
That's
what?
what that says to me.
You just said something earlier that just now kind of hit me is when you were talking about like all the people going to you. Oh man, when I saw that, I didn't want to be an astronaut. And like Eddie Bravo always talks about how there's so many of our horror shows just happen in space, in the forest, in the water. And they're like
Yeah.
The prophet Eddie Bravo always says, what if they're just trying to get you not to want to go in the water? What if they're trying to get you not to want to live
Oh,
in nature? They're like, oh, dude, you go to nature, you go to these little towns out there, bro. Dude, they got a guy with a fucking chainsaw, and he's gonna kill you and your whole family. Stay in the big cities, man. This is where you want to go. We got no Jason Voorhees in the big cities. We got none of that. It's like that just really resonated with me. It's like, don't even dream
point.
of trying to go to space because this thing will blow up. You want to stay here on the ground in our
Well,
little petri dish.
this is Truman. This is Truman. I mean, I always use this example. People say, "Oh, why would they lie about where we live and NASA?" Because, like you said, I'm sure we would get to this, but it's way deeper than lying about a rocket. It's way deeper than politics. It's way deeper than the ISS. This is about our history, where we live, the spiritual aspect. What are they actually hiding from us? We don't know. But Truman was a lot easier to control when he didn't know what was going on. But when he started to go, wait a minute,
The
I
Truman
can
Show.
yeah, the Truman Show. He started to pick up on it, and he was a real pain in the butt. They had to keep throwing psyop after psyop at him to make him think he couldn't leave. Now, I always tell people, imagine if everyone was Truman and was that curious and was trying to explore. All these people climbing the freaking ice wall. We wouldn't be climbing the Capitol on January 6th. They would have been climbing the ice wall. But nobody's doing that because they don't even think it's there. They took it away and they created a prison planet. They took your world and they wrapped it around the ball. And you just think if you go around, you come back in the same spot. So I think it's so much deeper than the rocket and the astronauts. I mean, our true history, you've interviewed Hibbler plenty of times, like his old world order. That's really what they're trying to hide with this space stuff. They keep us focused on the aliens and space. We never explore the ocean. We never explore these hidden underground buildings and these pyramids
These
down in the
tunnels.
water. I mean, dude, there's so much out there. And I think that's why they want you watching Don Pettit wring out water all day long and doing that shit.
So real quick, I'm not going to keep you much longer. You're also about the ISS station. What is going on with that? You don't think anything's up there? Do you think that's just underwater? Like, what is your thoughts on that?
So I think something's up there. I just don't think it is a space lab full of people the size of a football field flying at 17,000 miles per hour. I think that they filmed the exterior spacewalks underwater, most likely in Houston at the NASA's Neutral Buoyancy Lab, because we've seen bubbles in space. It sounds like they're underwater at times. Um, there's astronauts have had water leak into their helmet on numerous occasions and they've almost drowned. They claim it's leaking cooling garments, cooling equipment, who knows? But and then the interior shots, they've just had so many screw ups with green screens and glitches, getting caught in their wires and harnesses. I actually confronted astronaut Anna Fisher at NASA about the harnesses, and I asked her a loaded question. And I was like, yeah, we keep seeing these harnesses and stuff, and people get tangled in them. Why are they there? And she was like, oh, well, she did a Scott Kelly. I confronted Scott Kelly about bubbles in space once, and they did the same thing. They do the nervous body language, they laugh, and they say, no, I don't know what you're talking about, and that's not really there. Um,
I mean, they say like we've never gone through the Van Allen belt, which is hilarious to me. How they take
yeah,
something spiritual and then they flip it scientific, and it's just basically the same thing, but it allows people that don't want to believe in God or connect with God and out, which is the Van Allen belt sounds a lot like the firmament. But
yep,
for some reason, everyone will accept the Van Allen belt as the law of the land. But you go,
yep,
there's a firmament out there, dog. Water from above, water from below. Nothing. Quiet. Nobody says anything. I mean,
right,
dude, the weirdest thing is when you have people who are really, let's say, I've had two people on that are straight up like, we didn't land on the moon. NASA's full of shit, whatever it is. And then, but they still don't believe in flat earth. They don't believe in the
right.
firmament. And they're quoting God all the time. I go, do you believe in the firmament? No, no, no. We're on the rock. But buddy, you're quoting the Bible and you're just totally ignoring this thing that's in the Bible
Right.
and quoted on his tombstone on Von Braun's tombstone. Like, what are you talking
Yeah.
about?
I think there's those people either have a relative that worked in the space program. They were an amateur astronomer growing up and looked at so many planets. Sometimes when people have a strong connection to things, it's hard to break them.